I think that one's worse than the previous one. I mean, the volume on it's just horrific, right? Okay. Decorum and behavior, ethics, moral standards, a bunch of stuff that we tend to want to hold the people that we put in charge above us uh, accountable to certain things. There's a distinct difference for many Americans in this country. You don't really get to pick your boss or who runs the company or who's in charge of crap. At the end of the day, you're kind of at the mercy of the machine, right? That's how our economic life is set up for a lot of us. You know, we could choose to work there. We have a choice to work at that company or not. But once you take that choice, the rest of the choices, you're making a pact or an agreement to accept whatever BS and whatever crazy person they decide to put in charge over you. Politics, on the other hand, is supposed to be this grand participation that American adults of a certain age and of a certain prove that you live here, that you're born there, or that you have your citizenship that allows you to vote. But at the end of the day, one person, one vote, and you're over 18, one person, one vote, and it's not always been that way in this country. No, no, not without a doubt. So if that said, there's certain standards that we try to accept for society, and I'm one of those people that I don't want to say that I go around wearing fuck you flip flops because I wear a lot of flip flops because it's just convenient. I'm lazy at heart. I work my butt off, and when I don't have to, I tend to not want to overdo it. Generally speaking, the only reason I'm wearing a shirt right now is because I'm here for you and YouTube, and I want to present myself a little bit more, I don't know, acceptable. And it's kind of a given that if you want to do videos and you want to be at least have some kind of modicum of self-respect, you're going to try to present yourself at least in a passable manner. It's the same reason when we go to the grocery store and the restaurants, and back in the day they were much more prevalent than they are now, but there used to be these signs: no shirt, no shoes, no service, and that was the purview of the people owning the establishment, but it was usually for hygienic purposes and reasons. If you're running a restaurant, you really don't want a bunch of shirtless guys sitting around and sweating up the seats. Or any number of scenarios thereof. The other thing is you're trying to promote a family environment, and no parent really wants their kids being surrounded by a bunch of half-naked adults they don't know. Just common sense, especially when you're in a public venue. And then we take that caveat, this social part of this social agreement that we all agree to as adults in this country, in America, and adults generally speaking in the current era that we live in, that we exist in, is that we're going to comport ourselves in some manner, some standards of being in polite company or something like this. So what I'm getting at is that, so if you look at the problems in current issue here in the Senate, where they changed the dress code for the Senate, I'm not necessarily in agreement with that. I don't think this is a good thing, because this is the pinnacle of our government. You know, there's only, like I said before, there's only 100 senators, so there's only 100 people that get to sit in the Senate. 101 if you count the vice president. So you've got about 400 plus representatives in the House of Representatives, 400 plus, and then you got 100 senators. So now we're getting to the almost 600 category, and then of course you want to add the 9 justices in it, because they actually have some standards that they're supposed to hold themselves to as well, but they've been slipping on that a lot lately, and that's another video. So but we expect them as judges to show up at the court dressed appropriately. Generally speaking, in our country, the judges wear robes. I don't know if there's a rule that says they absolutely have to wear the robes, but I'm pretty sure that it's established. I guess I didn't I didn't Google that. I suppose I could have. But the fact is that they wouldn't be taken as serious if they were sitting up there in a t-shirt and khakis and a pair of flip-flops. You know, It only works in the movies, and then usually because you've roused the bastard out of a vacation day or something to get something important done. But we expect them to hold our judges and our judicial people to a certain standard. It's the same thing with our first responders. We have by default uniforms in this country. Our military is uniformed for a number of reasons. It would not look very professional if if our boys were all running around in blue jeans and fuck you t-shirts, you know, like you see in some countries. And then there's the police officers. Yes, there's a element of police that are ununiformed. They don't have a uniform on, but even they still have a standard unless they're they're going undercover kind of stuff. They still have some standards of dress. Usually a jacket, a suit of some sort. So, by definition, our political and economic system has established its own form of uniform, which is the suit. So, if you're going to an executive event, generally speaking, they want you to dress nicely for it. If you're going to somebody's, wedding, they usually want you to dress. Now, if you're in the wedding, they expect you to potentially wear a tuxedo or wear a suit or wear some kind of matching outfit, but the expectations are there. So to allow one of our highest symbols of democracy and for not just America, for ourselves as a standard that we should all look up to, but to the world as well. So to allow them to just basically wear whatever they want, I don't agree with that. I really don't. I really don't agree with that. I think we are risking going down the damn rabbit hole in ways that we don't always want to go do. And so Mr. Fetterman, Senator Fetterman, for example. No offense, dude, you look like a sloppy bum. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican or Democrat. You show up in our look at everybody else around you. They all look distinguished and professional. You look like a sloppy bum. You look like a dumbass redneck that got lucky. That's what it reminds me of, is somebody who's not a professional. Now that's not fair because we only see we see him like this, not necessarily in a good way because that's how he prefers to dress. Them hoodies of his is almost a caricature of him, but. There are plenty of videos or images because when I was looking for this image to borrow from the internet, there was many of where he's wearing a suit and he looks pretty sharp in the suit. Does he look comfortable in the suit? No, because I hate suits too, dude. I hate ties worse than anything else. So if I was going to have a break from conformity, which is my tendency. I guess I fall into this sigma male. I'm not an alpha male or a beta male, but I kind of fit into the sigma male range in a lot of ways. I'm not sold on the whole idea anyway, totally. But the fact of that I know if I were in that position, if I was in Fetterman's position and got elected to a high office, I would be rebellious out of nature. It would not be my nature to want to wear them damn suits all the time. And even if I did wear the suits, my problem would be is I'm not wearing a fucking tie for you or nobody. No man for any institution gonna make me wear a tie. You ain't putting something around my neck. I don't care what it is. There was a time I went through the gold chain stage back in the 80s where I used to wear little jewelry and shit like that, but when I went out. But I only wore it when I went out. I didn't wear it on a regular basis. And then I've also, it's a bad idea and when I absolutely had to wear a tie, I wore a clip-on because you know what? Somebody grabs your goddamn clip-on, it's coming off in their hand, followed by my fist in their face because I'm assuming they're grabbing me because that would have been me 20 years ago. You'd have grabbed my tie and I'd have done my level best to take your head off your shoulders for trying to do it. So the fact of the matter is that they didn't do it to accommodate Senator the senator here. No, they did it to well, truth is I don't know what the hell Schumer was thinking. Like it's some good idea. Well, we should just have casual Fridays. No, you know what? Here, you have you have a thing in place already. So the idea was is if they were rushing to get into on a vote, as long as they had one foot in the quote cloakroom, they could lean out and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down and get counted as part of their vote. If because they were rushing from outside from I don't know the gym or I don't know whatever, but they had that out. For the rest of the time, you needed to be in uniform when you were down in the people's well. When you're in the people's house, you need to be dressed appropriate. That's another thing. Once again, I was raised by raised by a Pentecostal believing family. One of those things is you went to church, you dressed nice for church. You dressed nice for yourself. That was something that took me years to really understand. It was we weren't dressing for to impress anybody else, because there was no way we impressed anybody else. My family did not have that kind of means, and most of the people going to the churches my family went to didn't have it either. So we were dressed in our cleanest clothes, our school clothes in many cases. It's the same thing for schooling. See, we were, mom and dad spent some money to buy you some nice clothes and new shoes and stuff for the beginning of the school year, and you wore them through school. And the first couple months of that cycle, you'd come running home, and you better get your butt out of those school clothes, because mom would have a conniption fit. About the time the holidays rolled around, that stopped being a thing, But the fact was, you weren't supposed to. You're supposed to use your old clothes for outside, and the new clothes for inside. So in a way, it was for us. We dressed up at church to elevate ourselves slightly above the norm. So if you don't normally dress up in a suit at home, that's not your norm. I mean, you have to go back to 1950s, 1940s America to see a lot of that, I guess. The old leisure suit days and things like that. Today's modern standards of dress code and stuff, I get it. The women have it much harder than the men, in my opinion, anyway, because their form of dress is restricted much more severely, because they're expected basically to dress like men. They should be allowed to wear nice dresses and or skirts and jackets, combos and stuff that they would normally wear in a normal setting. But once again, it's like the judges. When the judges come to Congress for the yearly get together, they're dressed in their damn robes, because they're trying to stand out. They're trying to show that we are a separate entity, but we also are showing that we respect tradition. So that's another part of that, going down the damn rabbit hole thing when we're dealing with the screwing with these dress codes. I now, can you relax some? Can you bring him into the modern age a little bit? Yeah, I believe you can. I think that they could have a rule that says if we have sessions that go past, if it's Saturday or Sunday and we're here, you're well to wear whatever you need to wear to get here. I mean, if we're having emergency sessions, then what you wear shouldn't matter. It should be whatever was comfortable at the convenient. But if you're wandering around in the highest halls of the highest institutions in America, and you look like a bum off the street, or somebody who's been rushed out of the shower without any chance of getting fixed up, you're out of line. You're out of place. I mean, come on. We need to set a standard for ourselves, if for nothing else. And a big problem what's going on today now in a lot of ways is that philosophy of fuck you, right? I'm just saying that's a problem. But so Mr. Fetterman, I don't know that it's Fetterman. Fetterman in part, Senator Fetterman, you're at blame here. You knew what position you were getting into, and you should have fully understood that there's a level of expectations that you have to step up to. Unfortunately, a number of the current crop of Republicans in the House don't seem to understand that they're supposed to be setting an example for the rest of America, and they're supposed to be setting an example for their peers as well. And they're setting some pretty poor examples. We are seeing what they're really like in the real in their real world scenarios. If that's how they act, and when they don't think people are paying attention, then that should be everything you need to know about that person in general, right? Somebody say, well, why are you doing that? Nobody's even going to know you did that. And I said, I'll know I did it. I want that done because I know I did it. It's just like there's a Japanese art form where it's quite elaborate. They go into a sand garden or rock garden or something like that, and they make great pains to tidy it all up and to decorate it in some manner. And in they will go so far as to there's a big rock, and they're raking the sand around the front of the rock. Well, they'll rake the sand behind the rock too, even though you can't see that from the front. They're going to do it because your mind is going to expect it to be done. And then there's something to be said that if it's not done and you're standing there, and some people will go, something's off, and you won't see it, but it is off. But so we do it because it's supposed to be done, right? It's expected, and sometimes we need to do that just because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes it's hard to do that stuff when it's just you, right? So it looks like the same problem when I look at these things going on in the Democratic Party the last few years. Senator Manchin here, y'all was elected as a damn Democrat, so you ran on a Democrat platform, but you're about as rhino as it comes. You are definitely what the definition of rhino is, a Republican in name only. Because you voted for, it's funny because Mr. Manchin, Senator Manchin, got himself in the news quite a lot while he was bulking the Make America Great stuff, the shit that Biden got pushed through in his Build Back Better plan that didn't get built, in part didn't get passed because of this guy here. So out of all the Democrats, when the Democrats had control of the House and the Senate and the White House during Obama, Manchin caused more problems and denied more advances in programs and stuff that might have been passed because he didn't buy into his excuses at the time was mostly about the money, but it comes out later that what he was pushing for was a whole lot of concessions for the coal industry, I believe. Because I think I understand that Mr. Manchin, you were really deeply tied into the coal industry. That you perhaps even own stocks and shares and things like that in coal companies. So a lot of your corporate donors are coal guys, right? So you can't sit there and say maybe that the fact that you have all that stuff invested in coal and non-renewable resources, and your supporters, most of your financial money that you need to run to be elected to your shit paying job comes from these same fine folks too. How is that not a conflict of interest, my friends? Fellow Americans, tell me that. I have never understood how that can, how they can get away with it. And of the Democratic Party, they have this tendency to stare down their nose at the Republicans over all kinds of behavior that's like this, that, and the other thing. But the Democrats' behavior a lot of times is far more subtle and more insidious than the Republicans. In some cases, Republicans are screaming and barking off of their sleeve. Their reasons are pretty shallow. Once you figure out that, you understand what they're really trying to, or their real goals are for the given situation. The Democrats, on the other hand, not so much. And sometimes within the Democrats, there's this conflict. You got several major camps in there, mostly about money. And what in a country that money dominates everything, money rules, bullshit, money talks and bullshit walks, and that's truth, doubly so in America. So Mr. Manchin purposely sticking his neck out and dragging and holding off and basically screwing a bunch of Americans, a whole lot of good hardworking Americans up over because of his personal interest in some things, amendments he wanted attached to the bill, and when they wouldn't do it, he wouldn't vote. That's the unofficial and somewhat official as best I can understand on it. But the fact of it to me is that we see any other time everybody's lockstep together, arms and elbows lock us up together as a group. Until you're not. At the end of the day, though, it's not good behavior. It's not good examples. You're setting piss poor examples for a lot of us. And the sad part is it's becoming more and more obvious that it's harder today for politicians to hide, where their money comes from, who's spending $50 million on a $173,000 a year job, and why. So that means Fetterman, you look like a slob. You're not doing America proud, sir. You're not. And Manchin, you're an ass clown. You're a goddamn Democrat, for God's sake. You should have been voting for some of those plans. You should not have been balking at them. And the fact that you're a corporate Democrat is so blatantly obvious in the fact that you did pull the shit that you did. So, right? And now since you got those concessions that you wanted, we don't hardly ever hear a peep out of you these days. Even live, I haven't heard a word or anybody say anything about Manchin in it's been probably a year now. Or maybe, definitely been long. I haven't heard Jack this summer, so except for the occasional comparison to his behavior in the previous past, it just makes you wonder. So, and least of all, not to be left out, former Speaker of the House, House Representative Nancy Pelosi. Boy, I didn't really have anything good or bad to say about Pelosi because I really didn't know a whole lot about her. I mean, I knew she was the Speaker of the House for a while. I knew she had some clout because you don't get to be Speaker of the House and not have some clout, and do so because you got some political acumen and you know where some skeletons are hidden, and you have some charisma and drive. Hey, McCarthy, any of that sink in? Any of that, just any of it? Jesus, dude. Jesus, you are total. You just, if it wasn't so pathetic and so damn frustrating, it'd be laughable just how bad a freaking Speaker of the House the McCarthy's become. He's worthless. He's less than worthless. He's actually part of the problem. He's a big part of the problem. If he just had half a ball, and stood his ground, and turned to Matt Gaetz and said, "Hey, dude, what the hell?" My big problem with Pelosi is, if you go back and you start doing a little bit of homework, she started in politics about 35, 40 years ago. And she did so with a small fortune. She was worth a couple $1,000,000. How many Joe Q public individuals, how many people in Congress today were plumbers before they got elected? I'm just asking. How many teachers? I mean, actual teachers, not some professor or some I don't know, administrative blah 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 of some university. Mostly lawyers and money people and wealthy people become elected people. I have noticed on the higher scale. So she came in. She had between her and her husband, they were only worth a couple million. Last time when I started doing this research, it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and she was worth $220 million. So she went from a couple million to worth $220 million. She did not make that money off of her damn salary for being in the House. No, not at all. How did she make her money? We all know it's plain as day. Congress is allowed to play the stock market. They're allowed to take advantage of the inside information that comes with their positions of power to run the market, and they do it quite successfully. Another thing that tends to get conveniently hidden or dismissed or ignored is that a lot of the dark money that goes directly to politicians, and one manner of doing that is to gift them with stock, to buy them stock, to invest in something they own or they have, to improve the value of it, which then improves the value of that. So that politician just got richer. They enrich the politician. It's just like the why it's important or interesting. I guess it's not important. It's interesting if you watch when so Marjorie's releasing a new novel. She's releasing a new book. Well, the book is not. She didn't write the book. Don't kid yourself. She had some hack do it. Some professional ghostwriter did it, like most of them do. They pretty much all do. Mitt Romney's new book come out. Here's another one. Okay, so here's the difference. Let's look at in 6 months or in 6 weeks after Marjorie's book comes out. Let's go out and look at Marjorie's book and look at Romney's book. And what we're going to look at is the New York best sellers list. They actually have a standard that says the books are counted by the individual sale. So what they're looking at is how many individual people bought your book, as opposed to bulk sales. So you could have an author write a book and he sells 20,000 copies. He can only make a couple $100,000 off of that. It's not like as much as you might think they might make. And maybe for the rest of his life, he's going to get a little check every year or every 6 months or something for whatever few books that get sold over time until they stop producing them. Then the other side is this bulk. So some entity, so say some big corporate outfit comes along and buys your book so they can give them out to all their employees. So they buy 5,000 copies in one go. And then another company, a billionaire, comes up and buys 12,000 copies in one go. And why did he buy them? He didn't give a shit. At the end of the day, he doesn't actually ever takes possession of them. A lot of times, stuff like that gets bought up and then it gets dumped right back at the damn publishers, and then the publisher turns around and sells it to a discount book place by the pound. And that's how it gets out on the market at that point. And you find them cropping up in some really oddball locations and things like that. But the actual popularity of how that book plays out is how it places in the bestsellers list. That's how you check. So when you get somebody like Pelosi, who purposely, she did everything she could to sidestep even talking about the issue of putting limits or to preventing or putting in play rules that say politicians cannot buy and own stock. It's a slippery slope. What we want is them not to be able to profit off of this stuff, but at the same time, at the higher levels, that's how higher level folks make more of their money, is playing in these stock market games. And the fact that it's a potential for a vehicle for delivering funds in a surreptitious manner that can come in under the radar is not something they want to give up. They're just not going to give it up. So I have a huge issue with this. And I've had an issue with it my entire life. I've never understood it. I've railed against it for years. And I understand that that's just an open window for corruption. And it just is. When I was a younger person, we'll go back to the 80s, the late 80s again. When I was in the convenience store business, I was working for various convenience store companies at the time, and as a manager, you made a salary, and your salary was a joke by comparison to today's money. Everybody was struggling, and minimum wage at that time was $5.25. Let's say $5.25. So you're going to hire people to sit as cashiers by themselves all night at a gas station. And pay them chump change. Nobody lives on a minimum wage. That's bullshit. People sit there, that's how? If somebody who goes around saying, you can live on this, you just have to do I'm sorry that person has never tried it. That person has never ever been in a position where they actually had to achieve it and maintain it. It's one thing. Oh, you could live off of $5 a day or $5 an hour, or so that would give me what, $40 a day. I could live off of $40 a day for 30 days. Yeah, you could, because you wouldn't be renting something. You wouldn't have a place to stay. You can't even get a flop house for less for that. Not anymore. There ain't any of those that even exist anymore. At least not around here. They might be in big cities like New York and shit, but not around here. So my big issue is part of that problem. So when we watch every year when these elections come up, and they spend every year the amount of money gets spent on advertising other crap for this stuff. It's just it's staggering, and it just keeps getting worse or higher every year. Even now, I'm getting election flyers and crap in my mail from these wannabe contenders to Donald Trump, and I immediately throw them in the trash. They're glossy, heavy gauge paper, glossy. So they were pricey. They cost them a few pennies a piece, a nickel a piece or something to produce. They weren't cheap, and so they're cranking these out by the tens of thousands and flooding the market with them. And in many cases, I've had the same flyer 2 or 3 times now over the past couple months. That just for what end? Nobody ever uses that crap anymore. Why even bother with it? Yet that's part of the big chunk of money that they spend, and all that money gets into the hands of, well, eventually the corporations, the big fat donors that donated the big chunk of money to their campaigns in the first place, getting some of their money back. But so we look at that, and I go, okay, this is a problem. So somebody who's going to make maybe $500,000 or $1 million in the course of the 4 years or 6 years and 2 years, whatever the fuck it is that they're going to be in, $173,000 a year for their salary. And then they get there's some extra perks and some amendums and things like, per diems and things like that goes with it, from my understanding. But the main salary is 173. And you're expected, a lot of them have got to be, they got to travel back and forth between their constituents. They go back to their district every now and then to wave the flag and show that they give a shit, make their voters believe they actually give a shit about them. Then of course operating maybe 2 residents, one back home and then one in Washington D.C. There's stories about senators, especially junior senators and junior representatives, where they gang up together, get 5 or 6 of them. They rent one house and they all flop there, and because they're just hot footing in and out anyway. That's the younger crowd. So the more expensive, or the more experienced, the more venerable Congress folks end up with some expensive ass houses around in and around Washington D.C. and the outer areas, Maryland and Virginia. So you don't believe me? Just check it. Google will tell you. And some of them, this is where they're giving Biden shit for how can he afford the house that he has. Yeah, how could you? How could you? How could the president afford that kind of house based off the salaries that he's made his lifetime, if he hadn't had additional income coming in? And every one of them does it, and it's accepted. So, and they go on book tours, obviously, selling, writing books, or supposedly publishing books anyway, getting books published, making revenue that way. Then there's the speaking tours where they go out and they get paid god awful, retarded money to talk at executive dinners and corporate getaways and shit like this. And then of course they're allowed to invest in stocks in the stock market. Now, technically, if you are a business owner, so when President Trump became President Trump, he was supposed to step down away from Trump Industries as Trump Corporation, because he couldn't be a corporate owner and leader and the president of the United States. And how much do you think that actually played out? So when I look at it, I would much rather pay these people a wage that's actually consummate to what their position is. We want these people. It's the same argument I have about Fetterman and his fuck you hoodie. Okay, he's lowering the bar in an already diminished Congress now, He's just making things worse, and I don't, and it doesn't matter that he's a Democrat or Republican. In this case, he's a Democrat. You're still fucking up. You're still making it worse. You're a bum. That's what you look like. It's a bum. Your health issues have no bearing here. I mean, he's recovering from the man's recovering from cancer. Hey, I get it. I get that's rough. I mean, I haven't personally been through it, but I had to watch my mom through the latter 6 months or so of her life, and I get it. It's rough, and the fact that you're overcoming, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. What's his face? Raskin or whatever. He wears a bandana on his head because he had chemo not all that long ago. And he took the effort to still dress up the part. He wears the uniform of a United States congressperson that works that like they're supposed to. So the fact that you kind of get this disconnect, and so when these politicians have this unfettered access to the same kind of stuff that would get you in trouble if you were on Wall Street and you use this insider information to benefit and enrich yourself, they put you butt in prison. They make movies about it. But the politicians are different. No, and this Nancy, when given the opportunity numerous times in the last couple of years before she stepped down, was to rectify that problem by putting some kind of roadblock or checks and balances in the access and availability of directly investing in corporations and the stock market for these politicians while they're in political office. You can still invest. See, that's the thing. There's plenty of they can invest in commodities and they can invest in durable things like gold, silver, and stuff like that. That's not going to be the insider information. Is not the same. It's we're going to help support the war in Ukraine. I mean, I find it ironic. I find it ironic that we spent better part of 20 years in Afghanistan to no end, and we were never going to be successful in Afghanistan. We would have been there forever. The fact that we stayed 20 years is just testament to the stupidity of our leadership back in that time period. They should have pulled our asses out. We should have went in, did what we needed to do. We got what we wanted, and get the F out. At that point, let the nomads go back to run the wastelands because it's a frickin' it's just not a suitable place to try to control. Let them do what they're going to do. We can come back if they want to get froggy. Somebody wants to raise another terrorist group. We can go back and take care of them. No point in spending trillions and trillions of our tax dollars on supporting this in a venue that's got no chance of winning in the first place. So I just said we get Biden's one of the first things that Biden's does, and he's taken heat ever since, was get us out of Afghanistan. Just flat out say we're done. And yes, was it a sloppy withdrawal? Yes. Was it could have been handled better? Yeah. Did we totally miss our people on the ground there and back here in the States? Totally misjudge the situation? Yeah. Yeah, I think we honestly didn't expect. There were plenty of people who were telling others but nobody wants to listen. The Afghani, the Afghani Defense Force is not going to be able to withstand anything. The minute we walk away, they're going to cave. They're going to melt away, and if nothing else, half of them are going to immediately jump ship because they were part of the Taliban the whole damn time because. All I can think, people get all butthurt about that. All I can think of is I say Red Dawn. Watch the movie Red Dawn. It doesn't matter which version of Red Dawn you watch, but go ahead and watch Red Dawn because that's what you got, jackass. And you think it's any different anywhere else? We've proved that over and over again, trying to fight the damn Vietnam, the Vietnam, the Viet Cong and the damn Vietnamese jungles was foolhardy at best and just flat out stupid. It was not going to historically speaking, it's proven it's not a region you can control. Afghanistan is well proven not a region you can control. The Balkans is another area that the only way you can control it is at a gunpoint. You want to keep the Balkans people from killing each other? You got to stand there and point a gun at both their heads, and then spend the rest of existence doing that. You're all playing because that's what the Russians did all through the USSR age. The reason they didn't have a whole lot of infighting and crap that we knew about, who knows what went down, they didn't make it out of the out from behind the Iron Curtain. but was because the Russians were standing there on both sides with comrades, comrades, we'd kill you if you stupid. You know, and I'm just saying sometimes the blunt force is not always a bad way of dealing with stuff. So I would pay our politicians $1 million. Just give them a 7-figure fucking salary. I'm just saying this they're doing jobs that entitle them to be, at a certain level of luxury, and that luxury should carry through hopefully responsibly. That's debatable based on certain individuals today, but not everybody. I'm not trying to say the entire barrel is fucking rotten. It just reeks of being rotten, right? So the $1 million. The caveat being, you cannot own stock, period. Sell your stock. You're going to go into office, you sell your stock. That money goes into the bank somewhere and collect interest on it, invest it in investment. Money can be invested differently, and that's fair game because you're not using insider information to potentially enhance your chances at making money. You're not selling stocks before everybody else knows that the corporation's taking one in the ass because the feds are doing something. I mean, that's just all stuff that would if you worked on Wall Street, they'd put you in prison and make movies about. So Nancy, you're wrong. And it was so blatantly wrong, and it's inexcusable. It's just one more reminder of just how much these politicians of both sides in the pockets of the wealthy people and the corporations who are the wealthy people. Once again, we got to look after our shareholders and stockholders. Who are those shareholders? People like these? Mr. Fetterman, it's just a matter of time before you get yourself some fat shares and stuff going on because somebody helped you set it up. Well, maybe, let's see. Katie Porter, maybe she wouldn't, but I don't. She's not exactly dirt poor neither. She's not wealthy, but she did work her way up. I grant you, if you work hard and you get some great breaks and luck, and a little bit of help, it's a matter of a mixture of those ingredients, and you'll do well. For the lion's share of us, we do okay. And then we define what okay is, but then we look at other people that are just grossly out of control, and we think, how the hell is that fair? How the hell is that fair? So like I said, pay the politicians, pay them $1 million a year, make damn sure that they say an understanding that potentially you're going to prison if you lie, but you can't have stocks. Sell your stocks and take your money, invest it in bonds and invest it in IRAs and shit like that until you're out. But you can't have any stocks. You can't play the stock market. You should also be. They should also be required to be quite clear where this money is coming from and what they're spending their money on. Any large purchases over X amount of dollars should be accounted for, and any large incoming groups of money better bloody well be accounted for and brought with receipts while you're in politics, for nothing else than to reduce the issues of propriety and the possibilities of chicanery going on. I'm not saying it's perfect, right? It's not perfect, but these people are not getting paid, and you go in hand with that. And of course, nobody wants to tackle this either because it's money. It's all about the green. But there should be some kind of limits set on the political monies that are allowed to be spent on running political campaigns. In no world should should the total money spent for a year's elections topped $1 billion though. So the last presidential cycle, what was it? The total amount everybody spent was estimated to be in $1 billion range with a B, billion with a B range, and so the dozen or a couple dozen people who got elected, including the president, vice president, accumulate nothing like that for income. So how is it that, how is it somebody spends $50 million to get a position that's only going to pay them maybe $600,000 over 4 years? How is that not some sort of obvious corruption issue? In my opinion, just asking. So that's my take on that. And the fact is, yeah, the Democrats are ridiculously low profile these days. They're sitting back on their laurels, and typical of Democrats, sitting on their asses and grinning and elbowing each other and watching the Republican circus in play, and that's fine. But meanwhile, we're still slacking, and we're still corrupt. We're still corrupt corporate shitbags who are enriching yourselves and becoming multi-millionaires. You weren't a millionaire when you became a politician. If you ain't, in a 100+ category, a millionaire, $100-200 million range, by the time you get out of politics, you didn't do something right. Then you're just not playing the system the way it's set up. Meanwhile, show some frickin' respect, Mr. Fetterman. Senator Fetterman, show some respect for yourself. Take a look at Mr. Raskin or whatever the hell it is. He's a good example. He's a fellow cancer survivor, and he's not looking like a slob. Don't come to the seat of power in America looking like a slob, because you diminish the rest of the whole institution by behaving that way. When you talk about the proverbial slippery slope, there you go. And the next thing you know, you can just show up and whatever the hell you're going to wear and whatever you want, and people, why not just bring your freaking dogs in next? They'll be bringing their pets in next. I'm surprised they ain't pushed through that, emotional support animal stuff here in Congress. Anyhow, I'm Rick. You're not. It's Sunday. May not be Sunday when you see this, though. That, too, my friend, is life.